You know that feeling when you've finally seen an extremely popular movie or movie franchise and you're like, oh, so this is what it's all about? It feels a tiny bit shameful since you wish you saw that movie a long time ago, but it also feels so good. Like these fragments of images that you have at the back of your mind finally pieced together, and after it all cleared up, that story just lives rent-free in your head, partying hard for a while before slowly stepping back to the back of your mind, patiently waiting to be brought forth again by some sort of release date anniversary or just by some random accidental spark. That is exactly how I felt when I finally watched Star Wars in May of this year.
At the moment, it's still in the partying in my head phase, by the way.
Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Okay, so today we are going to draw a Star Wars fan art. I'm just gonna say it, become a Star Wars fan. I have
very obsessed, I am.
Another fandom added to my multiverse of delusionalness. Is that a word? I don't know. So if you guys are new here, hi, I'm Jilly and I am a very delusional fangirl. I'm currently in a lot of fandoms. As a wise Pinterest picture once said, I did not choose fandom life chose me. As you can see from my t-shirt, which is Return of the Jedi, by the way. I've become a very devoted Star Wars fan. I'm going to tell you the whole process of that very soon. So today I am going to draw a fan art of Star Wars characters on a karaoke night on Endor. So I got this idea about a month ago when I was texting a fellow Star Wars fan, my friend. So one day delulu me just thought like, what if Reylo lived happily ever after and the Skywalker family also lived happily ever after? No one became one with the Force. After the conflicts, after the war, they would just, you know, casually meet up on Endor and have a karaoke night every now and then. What a dream, right? I just thought that I had to draw it out somehow. I already finished a pencil sketch, as you can see. So usually when I talk about movies, it's when I draw character arts, but I feel like I love the connection between the Star Wars characters so much. I have to bring them together somehow. So this is going to be a fan art video instead of a character art video, but it's basically like similar, so yeah. And I have done one similar video before in 2021, summer of 2021. 3 years ago, I can't believe that. I've drawn a fan art for Fantastic Beasts, and I remember I just loved making that video so much, so I'm really excited to make this one because I love drawing fan arts. And another thing I want to mention, the galaxy far, far away is so huge that there are like obviously still corners that I haven't been to yet. I haven't fully rewatched any of them yet, so like my thoughts might be a little like bit scattered here and there. So I'm just gonna convey like my thoughts so far. I'll try to convey everything clearly in this video. Do or do not, there is no try. Tell you how and why I finally watched Star Wars.
So,
my first encounter with Star Wars was actually when I was about like 7 years old. So my parents actually recommended it to me, like they played it on the TV at home, and little like first grade me or something, I watched the opening of episode 4 and stopped because I was scared and bored. I'm sorry. So it wasn't love at first sight. Just by watching the opening, I don't know why, I only remembered some spaceships battling and evergreens for some reason. For the next decade, that was my impression of Star Wars. Spaceships fighting in space. Flash forward to 4th grade, my teacher, he's a really big Star Wars fan, and he tried to recommend it to me, but at that time I was busy with Harry Potter. So flash forward to this year, to like April of 2024. My film teacher this year, he's also a big Star Wars fan, and he recommended again since I was like running out of films to watch and wanting some, you know, fairly lighthearted stuff to watch since like we were approaching exam month. Star Wars wasn't all lighthearted. I finally clicked into episode 4 again. A new hope for me watching Star Wars and potentially loving it. I watched it in release order, so I watched the original trilogy, then the prequels, and the sequels. And so, ladies and gentlemen, here's my roller coaster feelings of watching Star Wars throughout the saga. Episode 4. So this is where the fun begins. Episode 5, I love you. Episode 6, the Force is strong with this one. Episode 1, I have a bad feeling about this. Episode 2, It's coarse, rough, irritating. Episode 3, power! Unlimited power! Episode 7, it was said that you would destroy the not so good Star Wars films, not join them. Episode 8, something inside me has always been dead, but now it's awake. That something was the potential of being a Star Wars fan. And finally, episode 9, no one's ever really gone. Funnily enough, it wasn't until episode 8 when I finally officially declared myself to be a full-on obsessed Star Wars fan. I know. You know, the interesting thing is, so our school gave us a mock exam before our actual official exam. We had a mock exam back in February. During that time, I fell back into my Middle Earth obsession because, you know, I just really needed some sort of escapism. When we finished the mock exams in February, I remember thinking about the actual exams. I remember thinking, when May comes, how would I cope? How would I survive, you know? And I remember actively wondering which universe I would step into or step back into during the actual exams. And turns out it was the galaxy far, far away. And I'm really glad that it was that, because there's just so much to explore. And it really did successfully take my mind off exam stress. The power of stories, guys.
Oh, I'm drawing Ray right now.
Burning right now. Okay, so now let's review each Skywalker Saga film. I'm going to just give you some my general thoughts and opinions. We're gonna start by episode 4, A New Hope. My first impression for A New Hope was actually, it's a lot like Dune. After I watched that film, my friend also watched that film, and together we made a really unwise decision of just devouring the Star Wars wiki at school. So we read all the major spoilers. We both thought that Luke and Leia were gonna end up together. We went on the Star Wars wiki and we went on the page for Luke Skywalker, and under his little information section thingy, it said siblings Leia, and we were just huh? And then we read a little further and it was parents Darth Vader. So watching episode 4, I was a tiny little bit bored. I'm so sorry. I feel at first it was just a little slow personally for me, so I didn't really get that excited. But I promise I'll give it another chance someday, and I think I'll like it a lot more when I rewatch it. By the way, guys, follow my letterboxd. I give delusional reviews for movies. And moving on to Empire Strikes Back. Empire Strikes Back is my Star Wars comfort film. I loved Leia and Han's the little enemies to lovers arc, and I loved their quarrels, and I loved their roasting each other. That was really fun to watch, and that was really cute. I also really like Yoda. Yoda is, I want to swing on a vine and train with Yoda in a swamp and just become wiser, you know. He actually said so much of my favorite Star Wars quotes, judge me by my size, dude, and stuff. War doesn't make one great. And that scene where Luke was having this hallucination or something, this vision of Darth Vader, and he struck him down, and he just, and in his mask, Luke saw his own face. That was a really powerful moment. That scared me actually when I first watched it. I love how it started to show this identity struggle for Luke. That's gonna be a really major thing for the rest of the film, and also Return of the Jedi. And I think that was a really powerful imagery for that. And also, of course, the Bespin, the Cloud City scenes. Those scenes were so beautiful, first of all, the cinematography. And of course, we have I Love You, I Know, that's I love when my favorite couples go through stuff. Especially Han's little nod of reassurance at Leia when he was being lowered to the carbonite thingy. And after that, I loved how Luke and Leia communicated through the Force. I just love the connection between the characters and how much they support each other, you know. And also that last scene where the characters were looking out into space. That was one of my favorite Star Wars shots. It's a team. I love movies about found family. I love the found family trope. Okay, Return of the Jedi. Aww. First of all, I hate Jabba. like disgusting. Why are so many people obsessed with Jabba? I know that some people might be joking, but like, I don't get it. He's disgusting. That Star Wars recap rap that Daisy Ridley performed is stuck in my head. It's been stuck in my head for the past 30 minutes, I swear. Aside from Jabba, the Ewok sequence for me personally was a kind of dragged on a bit. It was a little too long for me. But aside from those like small issues I have with Return of the Jedi, the third act where Luke confronted Vader, that part, that whole fight between Luke and Vader and like Palpatine watching, that was just perfection. That was like, I feel like Star Wars at its best. And like Anakin's redemption was just so moving to watch, of course. And also like the cinematography was so well done as well. Well, when Luke was fighting Vader, we can see his like internal conflict on his like face, and like that moment, Luke's face, the lighting on Luke's face, it was just like half light, half dark, and that was just like, when I watched that scene, I was like, oh wow, I think I'm becoming a Star Wars fan. Aside from that, Endor, which is also what I'm drawing right now, it might be my favorite location. My personal favorite environment to be in is like a forest with evergreens, and Endor is just that. And like Endor is so cozy. Okay, so let's have a planet appreciation interlude, okay? So my personal favorite planets are, well, Endor is a moon, but Endor, Naboo, and Alderaan. Can you give me back Alderaan, Vader, please? Can you give back Alderaan? Like, especially like in the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, you see more of Alderaan, and it's so gorgeous, like the mountains and the evergreens. I have a thing for evergreens, guys. Those are the 3 planets, like the 3 locations that I would want to live on.
And aside from those, I wouldn't want to live on any of those planets, to be honest.
I feel like with Return of the Jedi, the theme of family really comes through. The power of family and the belief in good, like how those are stronger than the dark side. I feel like A New Hope is largely about like finding your own part in the story, finding your place in the galaxy. I feel like Empire Strikes Back, it's largely about like the value of friendship and being a team and like helping your friends. Return of the Jedi takes that up a scale again and is about like the power of family. Self and then friendship and then family. Is just like, I like the structure of the original trilogy. About the prequels. So now it's starting to get a little bit more divisive. I feel like most Star Wars fans enjoy the originals, and then starting from the prequels, there's more debate. For me personally, it also wasn't love at first sight, to be honest. It wasn't even love at second sight. For the originals, it was love at second sight. But for the prequels,
it was love at third sight.
I appreciate the prequels as a whole. I like the story, and I like how that gives the background of, you know, Anakin Skywalker and like those around him. I really love most of the characters in the prequels. However, I don't think I'm the biggest fan of prequels. For The Phantom Menace, like I feel like my biggest issue with that is just there was like a lot of exposition, like a lot of it, which can be a little exhausting to watch sometimes. Like you have to like keep up with everything they're saying, and I wasn't keeping up with everything they're saying, so I was like a little, like I can say like a little detached. There were action, but I feel like the execution could be what did I just say? Did I just say execution? The exposition can be executed in more ways instead of like just the characters in the room and talking. But after that, when we got to the third act, when we got to the Duel of the Fates, that was epic. And lastly, I don't know about you, but for me, I could always tell Kira and Natalie apart. Okay, Attack of the Clones. 10 years passed, Anakin's grown. Sorry, that rap is still stuck in my head.
You know, honestly, I don't remember that much about that film.
I was still a little detached. And when I say detached, I also mean like from the characters. Like, I didn't care that much about the characters yet. I think my favorite part of Attack of the Clones was the love theme, Across the Stars. Across the Stars and One Day from Pirates of the Caribbean, the 2 goats of cinematic love theme. Oh no, now Across the Stars is stuck in my head. I feel like Obi-Wan's humor carried this film. Ooh, almost picked the wrong color. But then Revenge of the Sith happened, and that was a huge step solidifying me being a Star Wars fan. Empire Strikes Back is my comfort Star Wars film, but I feel like Revenge of the Sith as a whole, like the pacing, the structure, the emotional impact, the character development, it's definitely not the one that I would like pull up if I want to watch a Star Wars film, because it's so tragic. But I feel like from a storytelling perspective, it's like, for me, the best Star Wars film. This one really has the high ground. Order 66, oh my gosh, guys. It's just like the epitome of hopelessness and dread and despair. And for Palpatine, I don't think I've ever hated a villain more than I hated Pal. Such good acting too. Like every time Palpatine smiled like that, it literally like made my skin crawl. Like I was just like burning with anger. Like I just hated him so much. And when he like, you know, when he conversed with Anakin, when I was trying to seduce him to the dark side, I was just like, I feel myself just wanting to like reach into the screen and just like tell Anakin, like, just don't listen to that. Don't listen to Palpatine. And even though it ended so tragically, ultimately I feel like the prequels wrapped in sort of like a hopeful note because we see baby Luke and baby Leia. That was one of my favorite scenes as well, when they were, you know, adopted, and especially when their themes came up. I love leitmotifs. Okay, moving on to sequels. Okay, so we're kind of stepping into like dangerous territory here. So I really do feel like I have to give a disclaimer before talking about the sequels. I have a bunch of unpopular opinions for the sequels. I know that the fandom is like really divided with the sequels.
But let's just talk about purposes before anything else.
People have a right to like, you know, like and dislike films. And if you really dislike the sequels, that's fine to me. Perfectly makes sense to not like them. So I feel like I say personally too much in this video. I don't hate the sequels. I'm just gonna say I don't hate the sequels, but I don't love them either. Okay, but like, you know, hate is a strong word. I don't think it's to that extent. I think that there are still like bits and pieces that you can appreciate about the sequels. For The Force Awakens, I didn't rate that very highly on Letterboxd. Okay, so I'm gonna say what I like first. I love Rey's theme, and I love Rey. That's another unpopular opinion. See? She's partying over here. First of all, look at this smile. I feel like I would appreciate it more if the filmmakers took more time to like really develop this character. But I still don't think that's enough reason to hate her as a character, because she's also just a human being trying to make her way in the galaxy, you know? Standing in front of a Luke, asking him to teach her. I don't know where that came up. And I actually really loved her introduction especially. There's basically no dialogue, but you get to know the character nevertheless. From those like minutes, we get that she's hardworking, we get her living situation, we get that she's a kind one, and we get that she's a hopeful character. Oh, and I also really liked her like character design. Like I really liked her outfit. I do think that Rey's introduction, like not the specific scenes, but like the main ideas, it's too alike to Luke's. And that's my main problem with The Force Awakens. It's the excessive amount of nostalgia bait. I've never seen a film with this much nostalgia. And I do love nostalgia. Like I'm a really... Ooh, something fell. I'm a really nostalgic person, and I get really excited when I see like things I've seen from like previous films and stuff. And I do think a bit of nostalgia is really effective. However, this movie is just basically all nostalgia, and that's really too much. I like the idea of Rey living on a like an uninteresting and like barren planet, but like just make it a barren planet. You don't have to make it a desert to like call back to Tatooine. That's my biggest like personal issue with The Force Awakens, and why I didn't really like it, even though it did establish like a lot of potential. Like I love all the main protagonists that the sequels created, like Rey, Finn, Poe. For Finn, I loved his like character like setup, beginning as a stormtrooper and not wanting to conform to that. Okay, so moving on to The Last Jedi.
So The Last Jedi, is my favorite sequel.
Let me explain, guys. It's a pretty fresh take on Star Wars since, you know, I know that they, you know, changed the director and all that. And I really like the style of this one. Like the overall like aesthetics of this one, of The Last Jedi, I really loved. You know, with the using the color red. The cinematography of this film was like so beautiful. It's like I feel like cinematography, you can definitely say that it's one of the best Star Wars films. I have like issues with all the sequels. For the first one, it was nostalgia. But for this one, it was Luke's character development. It's not enough to like ruin the movie for me, or like ruin the sequels, or like ruin Luke for me. Like, of course, you can bring a character like Luke or an organization like the Jedi Order down, like let them fail, unveil their imperfections. It's a fair piece of like character study. But I feel like Luke was far too cynical. It's not impossible for Luke to do all these things. However, I still have a hard time, like, you know, really believing that Luke would potentially murder a boy. Let me think what they could have done. I'm just a fan, and like those are just my opinions, but I do feel like in order for me to like criticize something, I should give a better alternative to make it, you know, justifiable. Maybe Luke did see the dark in Ben. He saw what Snoke did. By the way, Snoke, maybe he saw that and he just completely backed off. No, but that's maybe fear overtook him and he started to become like more distant. Maybe Luke started to neglect Ben. I feel like neglect can be a more suitable problem. Maybe Luke is afraid that Ben will use what he's learned to the advantage of the dark side, so he's stopped teaching him a lot of stuff. And with like Leia and Han being busy with like the resistance work, maybe Ben just feels really isolated, alienated in general, and maybe the only person at that point who showed him any sort of like attention, like real attention, was Snoke. So that's why he eventually turned to the dark side. Maybe he got into a big fight with Luke, and maybe that's when Luke ignited the lightsaber. Maybe he truly got scared that his master would, you know, kill him, even though Luke wouldn't, because the Jedi, they don't attack. It's hard. I know, I agree. It's hard to come up with, you know, these kind of stuff. It's hard to write a story. Another thing about like Luke's storyline being unrealistic, I feel like he could be reluctant of returning to the rest of the resistance and fighting the dark side, but knowing that your sister and your friend Han and Chewie, they're a part of it, and we see from the Empire Strikes Back Luke that what Luke prioritized the most was to help his friends, like despite him not finishing his training and all that. And like he probably felt Han's death, and he probably felt like the emotional turmoil of Leia. He would have done something for them to help them. The part where Luke was struggling to embrace being a legend was a fair like factor to add to whole overall like conflict of the story, to like his refusal of teaching Rey. So I feel like Luke's arc should be like embracing his influence and embracing how he can influence people, but also the greater public could understand that Luke was more complex than like being this hero. But like that scene where R2-D2 played the recording of Leia saying, "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope," like that part was moving. That handles nostalgia better than Force Awakens. Like that's how you handle nostalgia, I feel like. I know getting the audience to like revisit what they love is amazing, but I feel like with nostalgia, you should make fans care not by repeating what fans loved, but by actually utilizing what they loved to serve the plot and the character development. Like negative things aside, what I did like about The Last Jedi, I really loved Luke's moment with Yoda. Like that was really powerful. That was effective nostalgia. That was effective nostalgia. Like that was how, oh my god, the lighting. You know, oh my god, look at the lighting, guys. Does that look like Luke split between light and dark side? Oh my god. Maybe I'm having some kind of internal conflict that I'm not realizing yet. Oh, so yeah, that actually served the plot, that because it was necessary for Yoda to come back and talk to Luke and give this like kind of a, you know, wise, profound speech. That was like, he came back for a reason. Oh, I also love the Battle of Crate, especially like the style, the aesthetics of it. And I also love the quotes in The Last Jedi. One of them is like what Yoda said to Luke, the greatest teacher failure is, Luke, we are what they grow beyond. That is the true burden of all masters. And also Leia's quote, like Leia would say, like, hope is like the sun. If you only believe it when you see it, you'll never make it through the night. I love how Leia was kept on, like, being so hopeful. Oh, and also, like, even though I don't really see the purpose with Snoke did deliver some kind of, like, memorable lines. One of them is like, you are no Vader, you are just a child in a mask. I feel like I really accurately described Kylo Ren, and it was like, oof, you know. Okay, and also, at the beginning of The Force Awakens, at the beginning of the sequel trilogy, I had no idea why there were so many Reylo shippers. I didn't get it at all. I was like, Kylo is actually a problematic dictator. How could they ever get together?
But in this film, I got it. I started to get it.
This film, it made Rey and Kylo's, like, characters more intriguing to watch. I actually really enjoyed, like, Rey and Kylo's, like, struggle between the light and the dark. How they're, like, more two sides of the same coin. Like, that was really fascinating. Kylo's lines for Rey, like, you come from nothing. You're nothing. But not to me. You know, also how Luke said to Leia, no one's ever really gone. Okay, even though I feel like the placement of this line could have been somewhere else, I also really liked how Rose said, we're going to win this war not by fighting what we hate, but saving what we love. Even though they did fight what they hate, but that's a good message. So overall, I had a good time watching The Last Jedi, and I feel like it was a fair continuation. But then, The Rise of Skywalker was not a fair continuation. Let's not hate The Rise of Skywalker that much yet. I liked his speech in this film, like rallying up the resistance when there was, like, not much hope left, and when he said, like, for Leia, and when Rey fell under the hands of Palpatine, we're gonna get to Palpatine later, how she was like losing energy, losing hope, losing the Force, and how, like, the past Jedis, how they encouraged her with those voiceovers. That was a powerful moment. And when Rey and Ben started, like, fighting alongside each other, that was really badass. And when Ben finally became Ben again, and how, like, Reylo's story was basically like the opposite, the inverse of Padme and Anakin. The final scene on Tatooine where Rey placed Luke and Leia's lightsabers side by side.
So touching. I don't know.
I'm a person who really enjoys seeing weapons side by side. And I also love how Leia got her own lightsaber in that, like, really brief training scene.
Guys, I need a whole spin-off about Luke and Leia's training.
And finally, I really loved the love between the members of the Resistance and the love between families. Like, despite all the twists and turns of, like, the sequel trilogy being like good, bad, they didn't really lose the heart of Star Wars, which is family, which was nice. Okay, but that also concludes everything I like about The Rise of Skywalker. So now let's talk about my issues with it. My biggest issue for this one is, oh my gosh, plot convenience. The amount of plot convenience in this one.
Unbelievable.
Somehow Palpatine returned. Like, okay, but can we get that for Mission Impossible 8 as well? Like, somehow Ilsa returned or something? The biggest issue with Palpatine returning, aside from the plot convenience and, like, I'm tired of seeing him. I already, like, really hate him. It lessens the value of his death. But since that is a universal issue, I don't really have to talk more into that. They sort of needed a new villain for this one. That's why they brought him back, and also, like, nostalgia. But no one's gonna be nostalgic for Palpatine since they killed Snoke off in the last film.
That was kind of an exhilarating moment.
I honestly don't think they had to replace Snoke with another wrinkled villain. I feel like Kylo just could have, like, been the main antagonist. It just makes a way more interesting villain than Palpatine. But then you, like, also have to consider whose Rey's parents are, because Palpatine had a granddaughter. What? Maybe she could have just been a character who's been abandoned, and despite that had not lost hope, which makes her hopefulness more powerful, since her backstory isn't really touching either side of the Force, like neither the light side or the dark side. It is possible to turn her to either side, which it can also be her identity issue, just because like she had no background. So it also like conveys the message of some things are stronger than blood, as they said in the film. Like you don't have to share a last name with some kind of like really...
Essentially, you don't have to be like a Nepo baby.
You don't have to be like a Skywalker or a Palpatine to like be a protagonist, to be a hero, to be significant. So I feel like that they could have just spread that message instead of like making her Palpatine. Another hot take, I don't have the biggest issue with Rey being a Skywalker. Like, I mean, I would have appreciated if Rey remained Rey, you know, remained just Rey. Like this would have been a good character arc too. Like Rey was longing for a name, Rey was longing for a belonging, she was longing for a family of a background. But it could, like, they could make her arc so that at the end of the day she didn't long for those things anymore. She's comfortable and she's okay with just being Rey, and Rey is powerful enough. But I don't have the biggest issue with her being a Skywalker, because at this point, a Skywalker, it's not just a family, okay? It's not just the blood, it's just it symbolizes more. It represents more than just like the family at this point. So I feel like that's also like explainable. Just Rey would have been fine too, and I still love Rey. So yeah, that was my take on the sequel trilogy. I know I ramble too much, I'm sorry. It's like almost 8. I started recording at like 4. I think the sequels are stylistically more captivating than the prequels, like just aesthetically, even though the prequels establish more interesting planets. But like, I know that technology has advanced, but cinematography wise, I still think, you know, the sequels are beautiful visually. And I also watched all the sequel behind the scenes documentaries, so I do respect the process. I think that they mentioned how like they were being rushed to like come up with a movie by 2015 or something, as said in the Force Awakens documentary. So the plot was like kind of, there's a lot of wasted potential, and that just reinforces the lesson that like you need to have a story in order to tell a good story. The issues with this trilogy aside, with storytelling aside, watching the cast and crew have fun on set is just so heartwarming. I'm gonna like finish the drawing later tonight, but I really need to wrap this up because the light is gonna be gone. But wrap up. I was kind of hesitant to fully become a Star Wars fan initially, but then I realized for most Star Wars films there will be moments where I'd be like, I have a bad feeling about this, or like, this is kind of like ridiculous, isn't it? But by the end, interestingly, the Star Wars films, they always manage to make me care so much about the characters, which also like heightens like the last act. It always makes the last moments of the film absolutely amazing to experience. You know, plot convenience is definitely a thing here, but the characters at the end of the day, they always become like iconic for some reason. So I feel like maybe that's the magic with Star Wars, I don't know. Oh my god, and guys, I love leitmotifs so much. My heart always like bursts when they come up at like a crucial moment. And my favorite themes of Star Wars, the Force theme, binary sunset. Like, I feel like I can feel the Force just by listening to it, especially with the high note. And I also really love Leia's theme. Leia's theme is probably my favorite like character theme of all time. Like, of all time. Her theme really captures her as a character a lot. It's like, it has kind of like a classy feeling of the princess. It has like kind of an elegant sort of tone, but then it also gets really heroic and epic, which also aligns with her character really well. As I've said, I also really love Rey's theme. Rey's theme just gives me this sense of like adventure and curiosity above all else. And I also saw videos of breaking down Rey's theme, how it like aligns with Kylo Ren's theme. And of course, I love Across the Stars. It's just tragically beautiful. Now I'm gonna briefly talk about the other spin-offs that I've seen, just really briefly. So Rogue One, I loved Rogue One. I especially loved the theme, the message of like rebellions are built on hope. I also wrote this on my letterbox, and I feel like for me this one feels different from the Skywalker Saga in the way that it feels more serious and practical. Although I also really enjoy the occasional like random fun of the Skywalker Saga. I also saw the Actors on Actors interview with Diego Luna and Hayden Christensen, and as Diego Luna said in that interview, Rogue One was about the people. So for Rogue One, suddenly the galaxy far, far away did not feel that far at all. And for the Obi-Wan show, it was nice. I feel like some episodes could be a little bland, but overall I feel like the show captures the relationship between Obi-Wan and Leia really well. It was really cute, it was really sweet. I love where Obi-Wan said to Leia, "You remind me of someone," and that someone was Padme. I love that connection, that little callback. And also Qui-Gon! I miss you, Qui-Gon! And I miss Tala. And also, how on earth,
How in the Force
did third sister survive? By the way, I am INFJ, which is the same MBTI as Obi-Wan. So I'm Obi-Wan. I'm flattered. This is the finished fan art. I'm just gonna pretend that this is canon from now on. So as you can see, this is Rey and Finn and Poe dancing, and Kylo, as you can see, turned to the light side, and maybe he got together with Rey or something. I'm kind of a hopeless romantic. I still don't forgive Kylo for all the atrocities that he committed, but in an alternate universe, in Jill's dreams, this is what would happen. And here is Han and Leia. We have the little Ewok hut. Luke is here chatting with them. The Force ghost of Yoda being like the proud parent, you know. Chewie's like, oh, I don't know how to do the Chewie sound. This is the karaoke night on Endor. And I'm glad how it turned out. So I hope you liked it too. Look at the two loves of my life, by the way, guys. I'm so glad that I finally finished this video. Like, I was like hesitant to make this video. I was kind of like anxious and stressed with this video because I knew that I needed to talk about so many things. If you enjoyed my endless rambles, consider giving this video a like, and also subscribe to my channel because I think I'll come up with more Star Wars content if you're a Star Wars fan, and also like just movie content in general. I hope I'll see you soon, and may the Force be with you. Bye!